Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Carlton People. Today I've got Adam with me. Adam, we've had this one scheduled in the calendar for a few weeks now. I've been looking forward to it, and here we are. This is it.
Thanks, Terry. It's good to finally be with you. Been watching and following along the Blue Abroad channel for quite some time, so it's finally great to get involved in it in some way.
Yeah, well, pretty keen to document your story and see how we go. So tell us, how did you become a Carlton supporter? Let's start
Um,
there.
I find asking these questions to a lot of people quite an interesting topic of conversation because I feel like there's only two ways it happens. One, you're born into it, or two, you somehow attach yourself to a team. Um, for me, there wasn't really any choice. Um, my my option to go to the football was to go with my mum's side of the family, um, and her father, who was a member in the 40s and 50s, who took um, mum, her two sisters, and her brother to the footy every Saturday through the 70s and 80s. So it was there was no real discussion. I don't really recall ever being given a choice. In the mid 90s, it was a pretty good decision. 20 years on, we're still waiting for that next one.
It's almost like the template of life was just given to you. This is it.
Pretty
You
much,
didn't you didn't
pretty
need you
much.
didn't need to think too hard about choosing.
No, I guess the other option would have been Richmond with my dad, but he he didn't really wasn't as big into it. Didn't really go to games. Preferred to play a bit of golf. So my times football and going to the footy and playing golf at times. But yeah, I haven't ever thought about any other team really.
Yeah.
Haven't had the opportunity to. My grandfather, one of the first questions from my grandfather to my now wife was, "What team do you go for?" Uh, so it was almost like a rites of passage to, okay, so she's not Collingwood, she's not Essendon, so she's good. Um, and now she's firmly Carlton as well.
I can relate to that. I feel like if I meet somebody new, it's definitely one of the first 3 questions I ask. If I meet somebody outside of Australia who is Australian, it's definitely the first question that I ask. Um, yeah, I don't know, it's footy's funny for us. It's those who follow it, it's part of our identity kind of in Melbourne, right?
Yeah, yeah. And my wife grew her childhood was in early childhood was in South Africa. Her family then moved to Perth.
Mm,
She came to Melbourne when she finished uni, and two sisters had no real sort of idea or real following of football. She's like, she hasn't for quite a long time been able to wrap her head around how big the game is in Melbourne, and
yeah.
and how a football team's performance on a Friday night can ruin the rest of your weekend.
It's so true. It's so
Or
true.
take round 23, 2022, or round 22 of that same year with the Melbourne game, or how a Saturday night or a Sunday afternoon performance can absolutely ruin your entire week after that too.
Yeah. No, I feel it. We've felt it for decades. There, came a point where I don't know how many people were asked the question of themselves, but it's like, wow, we really because it's a club we're so passionate about. Um, and decades of disappointment
Yeah,
um
yeah,
got me thinking a little bit about why. But to be honest, after seeing 2023, which we'll touch on shortly, just gives you that glimmer of realization that it is worth it.
no, yeah. I think like I was actually thinking about it during the week, wondering where this conversation was going to go, but it really only hit me this week that 99 as a 12-year-old kid in the Southern Stand has only just been passed by that semi-final against Melbourne,
Yeah.
and for a long time that 99 prelim was the best thing I've ever been to. But I know the way that semi-final against Melbourne finished, and we've all seen the countless replays of that last 75 seconds. We probably all know the commentary, and I was sitting right on the last seat before a bay of Melbourne supporters. So admittedly, a celebration in the aisle, probably, turned into pretty disgruntled Melbourne supporter giving me the bird.
Yep.
And the end of the game finished with a can of drink from the bottom level in my hand. I'm not too sure how, but the memories now definitely, again, those memories are going to be with me for the rest of my life. And I guess there's only one more memory to sort of fill that I think a lot of my mates have seen going for other teams.
Yeah.
That hopefully we're not too far away from.
Yeah. Well, what's your first memory? What is the very, 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 very first memory you have when you think about Carlton?
Well, footy was always a family thing growing up. So memories of sitting in the car driving from home to the game with aunts, uncles, cousins, listening to the pre-game stuff on the radio, walking into the ground at Optus Oval, the hard wooden seats. In terms of games, probably got sketchy memories of some of the '95 games. Um, I was at that grand final. Can remember where I was sitting. I think in time, a lot of those memories have probably come from watching the replays rather
Yeah.
than being in the stand. Um, but yeah, I guess that sort of '99 prelim, the 2000 Kudafidis dominating those 3 or 4 years. Probably the real sort of start of my clear memory on what was going on. And then it's not the memories, unfortunately, not that great of time on the field. And I can probably obviously remember more losses than wins, but the wins are very special.
Yeah. What are the core memories? I think everyone's got certain core memories.
Yeah.
What are some of yours that, for whatever reason, mean more to you?
Um, well, my memory doesn't like my memory's not great of round year game, but individual moments. I think I remember Kudafidis kicking a bag of 5 against the Roos at Optus Oval one day. I remember the win against the Giants on a Sunday afternoon, probably 6 years ago. The
Yeah,
1 point win.
I remember
Um,
that.
and I've got memories through that sort of 14 to 18 period. I was working on weekends, so wasn't at too many games. But there was obviously still some games that I got to, a lot of games that I watched on TV. And then I guess that first next win against Richmond on the Thursday night, 2022, the game against the Swans. The more recent memories, I guess, that a lot of people are talking about, leading up to that semi-final against the D's.
You know that question has evolved. Finally, it's evolved because I mean I've done this series now for quite a few years, and the reality was prior to 2022, we'll say, the answer to that question a lot of the time was 95, 99, 2012 against Collingwood and that Friday night, or that Giants game in 2017, I think it was. And, all of a sudden that question's different. And I think it's a
Yeah,
good exercise in showing the development in our experience. Because,
yeah,
yeah, like you said, I mean, whether it's the Collingwood game from this year, the first time or the second time we played Melbourne, even that Gold Coast game to get into the finals,
oh,
and then the first elimination final, and then the second one, and the like. There's so many. I feel like we've made up for 10 years with 5 or 6 core memories in 2023
yeah.
alone.
And you mentioned that Gold Coast game. There's just no easy way to it, is there? It's yeah, six goals down. Plenty of time still left in the game, but
Yeah.
that we've we've come to just live with the roller coaster that is the Carlton Football Club.
I if there's one thing I've learnt about the club in however long I've been following it, it's that it's never really gonna be smooth sailing. The drama is part of the story.
Yeah, yeah,
It's the struggle and the overcoming of the adversity. It's all part of it.
and it's impatience as well from the fans because we've been so deprived of any form of success for such a long time that when you look at some of the other clubs that stuck by a couple of coaches that went on to win multiple premierships, then it's just not something that the Carlton Football Club have done. And
Yeah.
I guess it would have been very easy for them to go the same way this time around, halfway through this year. But I'm glad that they've finally stuck with somebody, gone through the gone through the hard times, identified what they need, and they've obviously got the leader, and his playing record, grand finals speaks for itself. Um, Now it's just a matter of getting everybody on the same page, and fingers crossed, a lack of preseason injury as well, to keep the team fit and healthy, and the best 22 are constantly available. And we've seen what can happen from that.
Yeah. Well, let's reflect on the year, 23. How did you I mean, we spoke a little bit off camera
Yep.
around, I guess, your colleagues or the people that you were around, talking about how you were dealing with, the hole. What was more surprising to you? The hole that they got in or the way they turned it around?
It's probably the way that it turned. I think with such they got to such a low level. We're thinking bottom four. We're thinking top five draft pick. We're thinking sack the coach. We're thinking fifth rebuild in 8 years. And then whatever happened, I guess, at quarter time against the Suns at the MCG, um, just propelled us on this journey of 12 weeks of just some of the most exciting stuff we've seen as Carlton supporters in their mid 30s.
Yeah. It was I think before this year, I don't think I had seen or remember seeing a winning streak of more than 3, maybe 4? I think 4.
Yeah,
So when it hit 5, that's when I knew it was serious.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
which
I've got some
game
vague memories of that 2000. I think it was 2000, that 13 that they got on.
Yep.
But again, I wouldn't now be able to identify moments in those games or those games in general. So to see the 12 this year was great,
Yeah.
and
No, no,
exciting, and it just built up.
yeah. No, I'm the same. I'm the same. I think it was the year 2000 or 2001, whatever it was, which was the last time when we saw 5 in a row or more.
Yeah.
Um, which game of the winning streak in 23, which one got you believing that it was real, or were you confident from the Gold Coast game?
There was no sort of confidence at the Gold Coast because it was such a scrappy game. Hawthorn was
Yeah.
pretty scrappy as well. Um, I guess that Freo and Port Adelaide game, well, the Freo game, like 50-point win on the road is a pretty big thing for any
Yeah.
club, for
Yeah.
our club in particular that's had such a poor record on the road. I think the Port game, I I was confident in a few wins, playing well, side really sort of starting to click. That was sort of like the real, like, okay, so now we've won four. What can happen? We might have been one win outside the eight or just in eighth spot at that stage. I can't remember.
Mhm.
Um, and again, a few people in my family told me I was starting to get ahead of myself. I was a bit more. I was very confident going into that Port Adelaide game that we'd at least win it. Um, and then Was it Collingwood after that, or was there one more in between? West Coast in between, and a few injuries there, and like, who's okay? So what happens? We've now got a few guys in decent form. Unfortunately, a few injuries come along, and the Collingwood game was just, for whatever reason, I would have been pretty confident that night. I remember my sister telling me just to calm it down, because like in those weeks before it, we'd gone from not not being able to score to now putting teams away by 50 points up against the best in the comp this year. Um, well, they were probably due for a loss. We were on a good streak, um, but there was always that we didn't have much to play with through the
Yeah.
second half of the season.
Yeah, it's true.
I think after that was St Kilda, and I was away, thinking that we'd come home the following Sunday. As that week away, we had the car. As that week away came up close to the end of it, said to my wife, "I think I want to be back in town for the Melbourne game."
You went wrong.
And that was probably the weirdest game I've ever been to, in terms of where the attention of the crowd was on that in that first quarter with the penalty shootout at the Women's World Cup. But the scenes after that were just incredible. And then the Gold Coast was that one that almost broke us.
Yeah, that Melbourne game, I'm glad you brought that up. That was weird. That was strange.
Yeah.
Because I was sitting level 1 on the wing at the time, and I remember feeling like a frustration because a big section of the fan base or the supporters on that night were caught up in the shootout, and whatever, fair enough. I
Yeah.
wasn't. I was watching the game, but I kind of knew that it wouldn't have been like the atmosphere hadn't really. It was almost like we were missing 20% of the atmosphere, and you could feel it. And
Yeah.
I was curious during that night how much it would affect the team and our guys. And even the way that it all ended, we almost fell over the line in that game. I remember that one really clearly.
Yeah. Yeah. I think and the funny thing was that, like, everyone was watching or listening to some form of broadcast of that penalty shootout, and everyone was slightly delayed from one another.
Yeah.
So where we were in the Carlton members, like, oh, she's missed, she scored, and it filtered through, and you'd hear five people say the same thing within the space of 10 seconds. And on that game itself, that first quarter was, take away the scoreboard from it. If there was no scoreboard involved, that was possibly one of the best quarters of football Carlton have played. From the way we
Yeah.
were able to just lock the ball in the forward half and put so much pressure on that great Melbourne backline,
Yeah.
that if we were able to put 2 or 3 or 4 goals on the scoreboard by quarter time, that game probably would have been a lot harder to get to that position on the final siren than it was.
Hmm. Zooming out, what is it about the club that you think gets people so passionate? Like, why do we care so much?
I I actually think we care so much because we're constantly in the news. There's
Mm.
been a lot of probably a lot of separation amongst the fans. So the media, the way the media works, they're probably a pretty easy target to pick a pick a player or pick a board member and use that to really drive talkback radio or
Mm.
um, headlines on the newspapers. I think sometimes the media don't actually know what they're saying. Yeah. The whole Charlie Harry thing, they can't both play in the same forward line. They kick 10 goals in a game together against doesn't matter who. Um, Kerno does it on his own. There's no room for Harry. Um, Reality is there is a lot of room for the two of them. I think they've played such a small amount of football together that they're still learning how to play with one another. At the start of their careers, Mackay couldn't get in, then Charlie was injured. Harry went on and won a Coleman, and they can definitely play in the same team together. I
No
think
doubt.
it's just the way that the media like to spin it. They know that people are going to call up SEN. They know that people are going to read the newspaper. They know that people are going to take offence to some of the stuff that's being said,
Mm,
and it
yeah.
works.
Unfortunately, it does. Unfortunately, it does. We are one of a few clubs where, as long as you put a photo of us in the headline, as long as you use our name in the headline, it's gonna get a click. It's gonna get a view.
Yeah,
We're a popular club. That's what
yeah,
happens when you are, historically as successful as what we are. So
and it
yeah,
was popular. It's been popular the whole way through,
yeah,
all of the bad times as well. And it's just grown and grown and grown, and now it's at a stage where everyone everyone wants to be a part of it again,
mm,
which is great, and
yeah,
that makes a difference, I think, and it gets them going when the MCG is full of Carlton people
yeah, no doubt.
at any game, and the final against Sydney, it was great. I think it was better against Melbourne, given two Melbourne-based teams. I think we probably had 70% inside the ground. Not too sure. Might have been a little bit less, but like it was that raw was just unbelievable.
Yeah. Where were you sitting for the finals? Set the scene.
Yep. The first final, I was a bit nervous in the lead up to getting tickets. So I thought I'd use my MCC membership just as almost an insurance sort of level on the Carlton memberships as well. Lucky I did, because there was a mess up with some of our barcodes. So sitting MCC top level on the wing against Sydney. And then we perfected our barcode situation and got the front of level 2 on the wing for the Melbourne game, which was like they're probably the best seats we could ever have dreamed of.
Hmm. What is it about the team that's needed to go the next step? What is the next layer?
I think it's just a little bit of development in the forward line. I think it's a bit more consistency from Motlop. I think Durden gets back in at some stage. I think they probably just need to find somebody to kick 25 to 30 goals. It's not one of the big two in there, or if two of them kick 25 to 30 and put Silvani, Fantasia, um, Motlop, Durden, and Owies. If two of them kick close to 30 goals, it's going to be a pretty hard forward line to stop.
Hmm. Yeah, it is. And my final question: what year do you think we will next see them lift up the cup?
24 would be nice. I think they're well equipped to get there. I think the loss in the prelims going to hopefully spur them on to that next level and that next layer of learning as a full club as to what's next.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I think 24, 5, 6, 7. I think that's that next 4-year window is time. Um, Hopefully for at least one. Got Hawthorn supporters that have seen 3, so hopefully we can emulate that. That'd be nice. Um,
That would be
but
nice.
but the 2-year journey with Voss has just started to put all the layers on top of what what's needed. I think they're finally there.
Yeah. Well, mate, I'm looking forward to it. I really am. I'm looking forward to, hopefully an era of, you know, multiple consecutive seasons where we see 15, 16, 17, 18 win game seasons, and we start seeing a lot more wins than losses in every year. And I think we're all going to cherish it a little bit more because we've all had to live through the inevitable grind and pain that you have to go through in order to be successful. So, no, it's been great, and you've been great. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, and looking
Thanks for
forward
having me.
to looking forward to staying in touch and following the journey hereafter.
Thanks, Terry.
No worries. Go Blues.